Welcome to Thrive in Design, a podcast about making money in beautiful interiors as it relates to product-based businesses in the interior design industry. Each week, we'll discuss innovative strategies on how to approach product development and design sales in a shifting market. I'm your host, Nicole Lachey Ben. At Thrive in Design, we help interior product companies in crafting compelling online and offline go-to-market strategies, enabling them to enhance their brand visibility and revenue within the hospitality design segment. We're taking on new clients. If this podcast has been intriguing to you, let's chat about how our team can help you thrive in 2024 and beyond. Head to thriveindesign.co/contact. Welcome back for another episode of the Thrive in Design podcast. I'm Nicole Lachey Ben, your host and the CEO and lead strategist of Thrive in Design. Of course, Thrive in Design is more than just a podcast. We are a design consultancy that helps interior product companies increase their brand awareness and revenue. And we do this by taking a special focus on the designer's experience with your brand. We look at all the online and offline touchpoints and make sure that you are telling an effective and cohesive story across all platforms. So, as you might have been well aware now, over the last few episodes, we've been talking about storytelling. Earlier during this podcast season, we also talked about AI and sustainability, telling a cohesive sustainability story across your brand platforms. So I hope that you have been enjoying the episodes thus far. Feel free to always reach out to let me know what has been sparking your curiosity and creating conversations within your team. And if you want to hear about some other topic or have me bring in some special guests, please feel free to reach out and let me know as well. I'm always looking for new engaging topics to talk about in the interior design industry. And we will have another season this year. Summer season, season 6 will be a short season, but it'll be action-packed, enriched episodes during the summer season. So what are we going to get into this podcast episode? Well, we've been talking about the touch points that your brand has with designers. There are 5 touch points that we've been talking about consecutively over the last few episodes. Those touch points for your brand are the showroom, your firm library presence, events, product presentations, and the role of your reps. And if you have not caught on by now, you would have noticed that in the consecutive order over the last few episodes, we've been talking about those things in order. We talked about the showroom. We talked about your firm library presence. We've also talked about the role of your reps. And so in this episode, I want to get a deeper dive specifically about product presentations, because product presentations is really where the magic happens. Whether you're doing a product presentation in your showroom, a product presentation at a design firm, at a trade show, during a project meeting between your rep and a designer, the product presentation is where things happen, because you're not only sharing the launch of a new collection, but you're also sharing some very pertinent information that a designer must consider when they're specifying. You're sharing the differentiating factors, you're sharing the durability, the story behind that's color story or pattern or whatever in your textiles and wall coverings. So your product presentation is where the magic happens. And if you're like a lot of the other forward-thinking brands in the interior design industry, over the last few years, you shifted from doing primarily or only in-person, offline presentations to also incorporating online presentations as well. And hopefully your reps haven't abandoned online presentations, because I think there's still magic to be happening in online presentations, whether that's an Instagram Live, a LinkedIn Live, or what have you. But we're going to go into some different ways that you can be thinking about this for product presentations. So like I did a few episodes ago, where I experimented by asking ChatGPT some ideas for strategies for showrooms, I also used ChatGPT again. Of course, I told you it's my best friend, to come up with a few different ideas that you can effectively implement for your product presentations at your firm. Before I get into that though, something just came to my mind. I just had a flashback of when I was a rep. And so while I'm having this flashback, I'm actually going to share with you what I'm thinking about. When I was a rep, and I was a rep for 10 years for different interior product companies, I worked for brands like Corseal, Librum, Cambria, Laminart, to name a few, and had short stints with each of them. But in every experience as a rep, those experiences were way different. Sometimes a product company would have a product presentation ready for me, meaning they had the slide deck designed and on brand for me to just go and present. Sometimes people or brands would take it a step further where every single product collection that came out for the year would have its own product presentation. And then sometimes people would take it even a step further where there would be a product presentation developed for each vertical that I was focusing on. So if I was going to meet with a hospitality designer, I had a product presentation. If I was going to meet with a healthcare designer, I had a product presentation. If I was just going to meet with a general firm, or I was going to do a multi-vendor trade show within one of the top design firms, I had a new product presentation. But there were also companies that I worked for where I was the marketing person of my own team, right? So I had to create the product presentation for myself so that I could effectively tell the brand story of the brand that I was representing. So there's a huge spectrum of product presentations and what is available to the sales team across the board, across the industry for interior product companies. Which one are you? Are you relying on your reps to create a presentation on their own? Or have you gone above and beyond for them and created a cohesive story on all platforms, including your product presentation, so that your rep can take that and run with it? So it could be on brand, so that it can be cohesive. And then your rep from New York is telling the exact same story as your rep in Toronto, as your rep in Miami, as your rep in LA, and so on and so forth. So it's important. Again, it goes back to the story of what is your brand story? How is it told in that product presentation? And I don't want you to be the interior product company that's relying on your rep to figure out what in the world your story is and how they're going to tell it in the product presentation. Because the last thing that you want is incohesiveness across the board, from city to city, firm to firm, and nobody knows what your brand is all about and why they should be specifying you. If you're doing that, you are leaving specifications on the table and therefore losing revenue, losing out on sales. Okay, so back to that train of thought that I just had, because I had a flashback, you guys, and it was not a good one, especially for the times that I had to create my own product presentations. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT to come up with some ideas for product presentations, both online and offline. So in terms of online product presentations, this is what ChatGPT shared with me. The first thing that they share with me is visual storytelling. So that is to use compelling visuals such as infographics, images, and videos to ensure that your online presentation is visually appealing and follows a logical flow. That's pretty straightforward. Next thing that they said was create short and engaging segments. So break down your story into shorter segments to maintain online audience attention. Consider using interactive elements like polls and Q&A sessions to keep participants engaged. To create a clear and concise message, and to do this by allowing your online audiences to get your message in a clear and concise manner because they likely have a shorter attention span. Avoid unnecessary details and focus on the most impactful aspects of your product story. And again, engage through the chat and the Q&A. Another thing was to utilize multimedia. So this could be happening by incorporating multimedia elements such as product demos, customer testimonials, and virtual tours into your presentation. And this helps in providing a comprehensive understanding of your product and its value. And I want to take a moment to stop at this point right here. Product demos can be effectively shared in a lot of different ways. When I worked for one company a few years ago, they actually manufactured and distributed a lot of different products, including Type 2 wall coverings. They distributed and created dry erase wall coverings, wall protection, and different things like that. I also worked for another company that created like quartz products that were stain resistant. So for each of them, respectively, product demos could look like writing on the wall covering or sharing how the wall covering was bleach cleanable, or showing a competitor product to the quartz versus the actual course that you're selling? How does the competitor product stain with certain juices and elements versus how does your product not stain? So that's one example of a product demo. A virtual tour could be walking them through your showroom space or even walking them through a project where your interior products are the main feature on display so that people and designers can start to visualize, oh, that's how they use that product. Or I wasn't even thinking like that, and start to think outside of the box of how they might typically use your products for how they could push the envelope to use your products in another way. So I wanted to take a moment to pause right there on that multimedia section. The other things that they shared, or I say but they is ChatGPT in terms of online product presentation, is to personalize the experience. So that is tailoring your story to resonate with the online audience. And this is super important for your A&D reps because at the end of the day, yes, your brand story is important, but in our industry, people buy from people. Your interior designers are really tied into not only your brand story, but the story behind the rep that they are dealing with. So your rep has to be telling a story that also ties into your brand story. So why is this product or why is this brand important to them? How does it excite them every day? Why do they find your products really intriguing? And how are they integrating this into the story? And that's really the only differentiating factor that should be different between your New York rep, your LA rep, your Miami rep, and everything. Their personal story, but your brand story should be consistent across the board. And that goes into the last point that ChatGPT shared in terms of consistency, and that is creating consistent branding. So ensure that your online presentation maintains consistent branding. Use branded templates, colors, and fonts to reinforce your brand identity. Because another thing that you don't want is for your branding to look completely different from rep to rep, city to city. I worked for one company that, again, relied on their reps to create content. And some reps were creating green content online. Some reps were creating red content, and it just looked like all colors of the rainbow. And it didn't look like one cohesive brand that these people were representing. And that is important. Okay. So that is what we came up with ChatGPT when it comes to online product presentations. So let's take a pivot into offline product presentation or a live audience presentation. How does that differ? Of course, your product presentations are going to, again, share your story consistently and have many of the elements that were broken down in the virtual presentation that we just talked about. But the main differences are as follows. First of all, you're going to have an energetic opening. This is what is the recommendation. So capture the audience's attention from the start with an energetic and compelling opening. Use body language, gestures, and a confident tone to establish a strong presence. Next, of course, it goes into our theme for these last few episodes, is storytelling through interaction. Engage with the live audience by directly involving them in the narrative. Ask questions, encourage participation, and create a dialogue to make the presentation more interactive. And this goes back to the other point that I was making a few episodes ago. You never want your storytelling to be one-way communication. You always want it to be two-way communication so that you are engaging with your audience. So if your rep is giving this live product presentation or one of the leaders at your company are giving this live presentation, how are they asking questions of the audience and getting to know more about their projects or about what's coming up in their timeline? What are their pain points? What do they need from your company? How is your rep engaging or whoever is leading your presentation? The next is use the stage that they said. So take up physical space. I can't stand, and you probably can't either, but somebody is just like standing in one point of a stage or maybe even a room and sharing a story. And it's actually like hurting my body to sit in this chair right now and talk to you. So it's important that if you're having a live presentation to walk around the room so that you keep your audience engaged, keep your energy up as well. And the last couple of things that they shared was to have demonstrations and samples. So of course, if you're an interior product company, you're not bringing samples into your presentation, you're doing something wrong. To have a story arc. So break down your presentation into an introduction, a rising action, a climax, and resolution. And then last but not least, to build emotional connections with your audience. What are some personal anecdotes? And I know when I was a rep, I loved to create personal anecdotes. And side note, at some point, I'm going to do like 10 minutes of live comedy somewhere because I like to do like funny anecdotes. But how is your rep or whoever is doing this product presentation sharing anecdotes from their own experience, from projects that they've been working on, or what have you, to be included in this presentation? And I want to share a quick story that ties in with you on this, because no matter if you're doing a live presentation that's offline or an online presentation from the lens of your rep, you always need to be quick on your feet and understand what is the end goal here. And I like to tell stories, and this quick story is just going to finish us out on this episode. I was a rep at one specific company a few years back, and I went to this wonderful firm that you all might know called Yabel Puschelberg. And Yabel Puschelberg was a very difficult account for the company that I was working for at the time. They were only probably specifying between like $1,000 to $5,000 worth of interior products per year. They knew of my company that I was representing, but they were very skeptical. They were very brand loyal to the competitors that I had at the time. So when I finally got a meeting, the magic happened in the storytelling in the product presentation that I was doing. I was sharing anecdotes. I was sharing my personal story and how it tied into the brand. But most importantly, it was a two-way conversation, and I was asking them about their project and the pain points in their project. I was looking over their drawings, looking over their renderings, and having this two-way conversation to create a story for myself and ultimately craft a story that I was going to tell them to get more of the products that I was representing in their specification. So bear with me. So as I did all of this, told an effective story, had anecdotes and had this two-way conversation, a firm that was only specifying $1,000 to $5,000 worth of product from the company I was representing in previous years for decades, mind you, went from that to specifying about $450,000 worth of interior products on one project. And that was a Park Lane hotel in New York City. So I say all of this to say, all of this is very important. Storytelling, your product presentations, really all of your touch points. But if you're not doing this effectively, or you're not training your reps to do this effectively, you, again, are leaving specifications and leaving revenue on the table that has yet to be claimed. And so I say all that to ask you, can you confidently say that your reps are effective storytellers? Are they engaging with your clientele in the way that you hope for? Are they missing out on specs and sales because of their approach? Ask yourself this, especially if you are a leader or an owner of an interior product company. If you cannot confidently say this, it's okay. Because at Thrive in Design, of course, we are here to help. We are here to help you develop your product presentations, to train your reps so they can be effective storytellers through one-on-one coaching, through group coaching, and through customized coaching programs. So make sure that you are not leaving specs on the table, that you're not losing out on revenue, and that you really take storytelling seriously, especially for the role of your reps in these product presentations. So of course, I'm not going to end this episode without giving you a call to action. We have a live training every month at Thrive in Design. So if you go to training.thriveindesign.co, we are going to go into this in way more depth and to start to implement some strategies for your own interior product company. And if you want to take it a step further, of course, we can work together. If you're like, okay, Nicole, I'm getting on this training this month. If you're like, okay, Nicole, yes, I'm getting on the training and I want to talk to you, please do send me an email, hello@nicolashay.com, or head to LinkedIn to send me a DM and we will go from there. But I can't wait to help you with your effective storytelling and also help your reps who are the face of your company and the face of getting you more specifications. So that is all for today. I can't wait to wrap up this season with you and for you to hear from our final guest of the season. So I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us this week on Thrive in Design. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Thrive in Design And for more strategies on how your product company can innovate in the interior design industry, head to training.thriveindesign.co. As always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to create captivating content. See you next week.